The Las Vegas swing for the PGA Tour season coming up, starting off this week with the Shriners Children's Open, the CJ Cup, once again in Las Vegas next week as well. So back-to-back Vegas events, and we're going to break them down from a PGA DFS perspective, starting off with this week's Shriners Children's Open, getting you set with all of our thoughts on each golfer and how we're viewing things from a DFS perspective. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. Brandon, finally back to talk with you once again after a brief layoff because I was occupied with baseball and NFL and NASCAR and everything going on all at once. So happy to be back talking with you once again on a Tuesday. How you doing today?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not always joined. I guess technically you are always joined by me on the PGA
But you
show.
are not always joined by me.
Yes,
Correct.
So it's one of those situations. But it's really good to have you back. I know that might be shocking news to you, but doing the solo show it's fun, it's different, but I'm just glad that you handle all the behind the scenes stuff. I always feel quite lazy with the podcast by comparison, so I just want to thank you. And it's good, but it's going to be good to have some back and forth because this field is.
Why do you feel lazy? You edit out breaths, which something that I would never even consider doing because like I got
try
stuff to do, man. Like I don't want to sit around here and like I'm a human being who breathes. You all can deal with it. I don't think you care, but like so from a laziness perspective, I don't think that's you here.
Well, I mean, for anyone watching this on YouTube, that you can see that I got like the double like pop filters, and still I must be a heavy breather. So I think it's my. Yeah, I think it's just a tendency that I have. But I mean, I was just trying to say I like having you back. You do a lot of the kind of, I don't know, not paperwork because it's all digital. We're all digital
stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And that way I can focus more on the analysis. When I have to focus more on the making sure that everything's set up properly and published, I'm not as sharp. Although I did recommend some Sam Burns. I just said I was probably more likely to. I mean, I played some Sam Burns myself. I said he's kind of the one guy that could be popular, but I did say that my win simulation model thought he was a little overvalued to win. But so,
well, how dare you? How dare you underestimate Sam Burns?
Just a tinge.
Yeah, just underestimating Sam Burns. Tragedy. So we got to bounce back this week by breaking down the Shriners Children's Open. It is at TPC Summerlin, which is 7,255 yards and a par 71. There are 144 golfers in the field for this week. The top 65 plus ties will make the cut after the first two rounds. So we're going to need to make sure we find guys who can make the cut, which is not always super easy in a field like this. So, Brandon, when you look at TPC Summerlin, what stands out to you from a stats perspective?
Big greens and lots of scoring. Average green size is 7,400 square feet, according to the GCSAA. For some context on the PGA Tour's usual rotation, average green sizes are about 6,000 square feet. So bigger greens, which would be fun for me to play. Although actually not, because then I just 3-putt everything by hitting the greens, and then I feel like my putting's bad, even though that would mean my irons and wedges are bad. But
at least you can tell yourself like, hey, I hit the green in like 2 shots.
Yeah. Green and reg, now I can 4-putt from 70 feet. They're bent grass greens, so if you're someone who likes to dig into putting splits, just know that. Kind of slower greens a little bit, or at least a little more average, 11.5 on the stimp meter. But here's like one thing that really stands out here. The past 5 winning scores have been 23 under, 23 under, 21 under, 9 under, and 20 under. The 9 under came during a super heavy wind year. There was gusts like up over 30, 35 miles per hour. So that's an outlier. And only 2 other times has the winter been worse than 20 under par. So you need birdies this week, which is always a good strategy on FanDuel anyway. But you're going to need to ramp that up a lot. So how do we get there? Well, distance is always an advantage, but the data kind of says that accuracy is important here, or at least accuracy can help gain some leverage. So scoring fest and a situation where some of the shorter hitters can very much still be in play, that increases volatility for me because it kind of keeps everyone in the conversation, aside from the very bottom tier. But again, the easier it is, like these guys are the best of the best in the world, even if this field isn't like flawless. They can go out and hit these large greens and make some putts. So um, I think it's going to be a week where we can be a little bit more eager to avoid the chalk wherever we think that arises. But as far as my key stats go for the week, it's going to be strokes gained approach. Number one, as always. Strokes gained around the green actually popped up for one of the rare courses where I would actually put significant weight into that, which is strange because it is a scoring course. So for whatever that's worth, could correlate to some shorter approach shots and maybe good wedge play. Kind of, there might be some overlap there in terms of skill set. Driving accuracy, birdie or better rate, and strokes gained putting on bent grass. So that's what I'm seeing for this week.
Yeah, for me, with the off the tee stuff, I went with good drives gained because going back to last year, if you look at the median ranking for the top 15 finishers, I guess it was top 13 or whatever, because there were some ties in there. But you look at the median rank for those guys across the full PGA Tour season last year, they were 96th in distance, 74th in accuracy, 80th off the tee, and 61st in good drive rate. So it did skew pretty heavily towards good drive rate there. So I'm going to go with good drives gained because, like you said, distance can help too. It does kind of double count approach, but like if I'm going to double count any stat, I'm okay double counting on approach. But then pairing that with birdies or better gained, I think will allow me to not overemphasize like dudes who hit fairways. So I think that if you pair those two together, that's kind of a good way to play things. So for me, I have good drives gained, approach, birdie or better, or birdies or better gained, and then bent grass. The stats I'm focusing on for this week as far as ones I want golfers to excel at.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue that. For anyone who doesn't know, good drives are fairways hit, or if you miss a fairway, but still hit the green regulation. So basically having good recovery, good irons. So it's kind of like a rudimentary strokes gained off the tee. I can't fault you for that. But I think that what it really just comes down to is when it comes to driving stats, do you have to be long? Do you have to be accurate, or do you have to be both? And for this week, for sure, you don't have to be long. Right. So that's kind of like how I'm approaching it. However you want to apply it from there, I think is fair. But it's just what we're trying to say here is that driving distance isn't a must.
Right. It de-emphasized relative to where it's usually at. We'll take a look at golfers who have done well at TPC Summerlin in just 1 second. But first, hey, football fans, the NFL is officially back, and FanDuel is giving you the opportunity to get in on the action. Each week, FanDuel is offering fans a chance to win prizes by participating in the daily fantasy football on Sundays. Prize pool is a whopping $2.5 million. Fair Play is taking home $1 million in this week's FanDuel Sunday Million. All you got to do is head over to FanDuel today and click on the NFL Sunday Million contest. Draft your lineup of players, sit back and enjoy Sunday NFL football. Go to FanDuel.com today to participate in the NFL Sunday Million. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details. Let's dive in here to who has done well at TPC Summerlin in the past. Talking about Kevin Gnaw. Kevin Gnaw is a past winner here. So obviously that's pretty relevant. One of them pretty far in the past, but either way, what do you see with Kevin Gnaw heading here to a course he has enjoyed for a very long time?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to actually talk about two guys who have multiple wins, but they're separated by a good bit. I don't think that we put a lot of stock into the last win, but instead the more recent win. But also, it's hard to knock anyone who has multiple wins at any course. Gnaw was also the runner-up here in 2015, but he did win in 2020 and back in 2011. Now, it's not like he never struggles here, so it's not one of those situations. He was 43rd and missed the cut in 43rd in last year, missed the cut in 2016, 2018, and 2013. So there are some highs and lows for Kevin Na at TPC Summerlin. I think what matters more is the recent data, and it's worth noting that Kevin Na was pretty awesome during the FedEx Cup playoffs. He was 8th at the Northern Trust, 17th at the BMW, 3rd at the Tour Championship, tied for the 72-hole lead there. Missed the cut at the Fortinet Championship, and has lost strokes off the tee in 4 of his past 5 starts. But I was going to kind of save this. He's, over the past 3 months, according to Data Golf, pretty easily the best golfer in the field right now. So Kevin Na, 2-time winner, salary of $10,400. What are you thinking?
I think that makes him interesting for sure. And I really think that this is not a bad week to be balanced because there aren't really like any like super standout guys. So like that range is pretty attractive. The issue that I might run into is that there are other guys in that range who have also been really good recently. You got Paul Casey there. I think that Paul Casey I probably like more than Kevin Na. The question is, can I get both in there potentially? So I think that Na is very worth that salary and very worth a look if you wind up being there, which I very well could be. So I'm with you where I'm not totally skeptical of what he's done. If you look at the past 6 months of true strokes gain data over at Data Golf, which does include some times before this surge, he still measures up well to relative to the salary. So yeah, I think he makes sense for sure. Not opposed, not prioritizing him over Casey specifically, but also not opposed if I do wind up there.
Yeah, I mean, Casey, you and I both love. That's just probably not the most surprising thing if anyone's ever listened to us before.
No.
His salary, I think, is a bit too low. He's 10.7. I think he should probably have an 11 in front of that, in front of his name, or I guess beside his name in front of his salary. You guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not like he's 10.4 like Kevin Na is. 10.7's close, but Paul Casey for me over Kevin Na, but really warmed up to Kevin Na the more and more I looked into things.
Yep, I think that he's very interesting for sure. Let's talk about Abraham Ancer because his course profiles well for him. He's hyper accurate. He excels on bent grass, and so not surprisingly, he's turned that into good results. In Ancer's 3 most recent starts at TPC Summerlin, he has finished 4th, missed cut, and 4th. In the missed cut, he must have been right on the number because he actually gained 0.1 strokes in the field. Last year, Ancer, he got by thanks to a lot of putting, gained 8.3 on the greens. He gained 6.8 for his other top 5. And that could lead you to think that what he's done has been fluky, but Ancer, very good on approach as well. He has gained, he ranks 9th in the field in stroke gained approach the past 50 rounds. He could easily do well there too. So Ancer's 11.8. I'm having a hard time finding any blemishes in his profile. What about you with Ancer for this week?
Yeah, I think Ancer is my favorite play of the week at the top. It everything sets up for an Abe Ancer week. Like statistically, he's got the good finishes. It hasn't always been phenomenal with the missed cuts, but I have been the 92nd percentile in adjusted strokes gained tee to green over the past year, which accounts for field strength, but also recency. And I just feel like he's going to be locked into gaining some strokes off the tee with his accuracy. He is not the longest hitter, but he's also not, prohibitively short. So
Right.
for me, Ancer is very much in play, and I'm pretty sure he's still 30-1. No, he moved.
23.
Yeah. I was gonna say
Uh,
I wrote in my helper on numberFire. I don't expect his win odds to stay at 30-1, and they did not.
Nope. I think you said he was like 20-1 in some other books too. So like
Yeah.
even 23 might be still decently okay. We could talk more about that potentially later on. But I think that Ancer is the priority in the upper range for this week, both because of like the course fit, but also because overall from a golf perspective, he's quite good. So let's move to the other guy. The other former winner you talked about here, Martin Laird. He won in 2020, but it's the 2021 season, which still will always trip me out. So I'm going to let you handle this one. Also, I'm going to move a plant because my dog keeps eating it. So I'll let you talk about Laird while I go handle that.
Okay. All right. So Martin Laird, we get him this week at a salary of 8,100 on FanDuel. I guess I'm doing this solo anyway. So good thing I got some reps in. But, I mentioned Kevin Na has 2 wins here. So figure why not talk about Martin Laird. He's the defending champion, but also won back in 2009. That, again, is not the most relevant, data point here, but it is hard to ignore someone with 2 wins at the course that we're at this week, especially when one of those wins came just last year. The recent form is quite rough. 3 straight missed cuts. However, it's important that you look into those missed cuts and realize kind of what happened there. He lost at least 2.8 strokes putting in all 3 of those, and he's gained at least 1.2 strokes tee to green in those, which the 1.2 sounds a little low. So it's been 1.2, 2.8, and 3.3. That's honestly, pretty nice. That's the recipe. If there is a recipe for having missed cuts in your profile, that's kind of what you want to see. Struggling with the putter, but gaining strokes tee to green. And Data Golf, which we reference a lot, they have a course history tool. They also have, on that page, they have a little metric that they call experience. And it basically is like, it's like the premise that if guys are playing the same event, like they're choosing to play this event, that probably means that they like the setup. And he leads, or no, he's top 5 in that this week. So, I mean, I feel like we could do a lot worse at 8,100 than someone who's got 2 wins here and is gaining some strokes tee to green.
Yeah, I think that there are pretty obvious paths to failure because the bent grass putting is not great, which is, I know that we're talking about how like, oh, you could be due for some positive putting regression, which he should be, because like you don't expect a dude to lose 2.5 strokes across 2 rounds sustainably. Like you'd hope not, at least. So it definitely could bounce back. $8,100 helps alleviate those concerns too. I'm just curious if he'll generate buzz this week, given that he is the former most recent winner, given that he is $8,100. I think that if he were to wind up generating buzz and being popular, it'd be a very easy fade just because the putting is really, really bad. But like, from just a straight up perspective, he makes sense. I'm not super inspired to get there, but I'm also not like going to cross him off, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's kind of easy to get like talk yourself into a lot of value plays. Not that they're locks, but you can kind of make the case. I am scrolling through fansharesports.com, and I do not see Martin Laird popping up here.
Okay.
So I don't think he's going to be prohibitively chalky.
Yeah.
He's got 1 tag.
Okay. So he should be fine. I don't know. I think that I don't know if I'll need to be in this range because my second favorite high salary guy is in the 10,000 range. So I might not need someone at 81, but like,
well,
he's not out of consideration.
No, I know. It's more if we do open ourselves up to, and again, like you and I just don't really play low end value plays very often because their odds of even making a cut are low.
Right.
When they make the cut, it's very helpful, but it's also kind of a high risk and sometimes a low reward probability. For Laird, we know kind of, not going to say he's won here, so his high end outcome is winning with his current form. It very well could be, but opening ourselves up to one golfer in that salary range helps a ton. But there's also a golfer at minimum salary who I like better, so kind of helps too.
Sure, we'll talk about him later. A little tease.
No, nope, not going to talk.
No? You're not going to
keep it. Jim, you think I'm going to keep it secret? Come on.
No, I said you're going to talk about it later, and you said no.
I know it was a joke, like as if like there's a minimum salary golfer I love. You said we're going to talk about him, and I was like, no, I'm not. I thought that was a funny joke.
I was like freaked out. I was like, did you change your player picks? I saw him in there.
Also, it's Hank Lee Biota, in case anyone's worried that I'm actually going to keep it secret.
Good Hank. Good Hank. Okay. Well, there we go. Now they're not going to listen anymore. They got Brandon's value play of the week. So see you, everyone. We'll talk to you next week for the CJ Cup. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast. Let's talk about Lucas Glover here. Glover has missed the cut in 3 out of 6 trips to TPC Summerlin. All 3 of those made cuts have been recent, though, and all 3 were top 10 finishes. Not too shabby. From 2016 through 2019, Glover's finishes were 3rd, 7th, and 9th. He gained at least 5.3 strokes tee to green each of those events. The approach play specifically very good for Glover. that's a good. The problem is that the form is kind of rough. Glover hasn't gained strokes in the field since July 11th. He won that one, but he hasn't gained since then. It's a 6 event stretch that includes 3 missed cuts. The ball striking has been good, though. He's gained an approach in 4 straight. He's gained off the tee in 3 of the past 4. So there's some good and some bad with Lucas Glover for sure right now. How are you viewing him here at $8,700?
There's some good and some bad in all of us, I think. But with Glover, I love Glover this week. For the salary, he's just kind of a standout from that perspective. I feel like he's kind of a lock to gain some fairways on the field, which again, you need a little bit more than that. But anytime there's like a post-win letdown, it's a little bit more understandable. He's still got some life in the irons adjusted for field strength, according to Data Golf. So for me, I'm going to have plenty Lucas Glover, and I'm not going to worry about the missed cuts.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. Because again, it's kind of like Laird, where he's missing cuts in an acceptable fashion. If there is such, there is such a thing.
Yeah.
I think that, go ahead.
Like there's probably something to like, unless these guys are looking at the data and they're like, well, I missed the cut, but I was gaining strokes tee to green. I just didn't putt well. To them, if they're missing cuts, they might not be in the best, mindset. And so that might actually affect performance. But honestly, statistically, like he's fine.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that missing cuts doesn't matter to these guys. That's a different thing. But again, like you said, missing cuts in the way that we want to see him miss cuts.
And he's made 2 straight. So like if there were like a mental toll, it seems like he's over that. So I think that's a positive for him as well. Let's shift now to talking about current form, and one guy who could fit the mold of this course is being a guy who can make some birdies and a guy who can make some fairways. Webb Simpson. It is a non-distance course that always makes Webb pretty interesting. Webb is 11-5, so he's in some tight competition for sure. What are you seeing with him for this week?
So we're trying to do better, or at least I'm trying to do a better job with the NFL show and just my process to think like ahead to Sunday at like 4 p.m. and or maybe like 5 or 6 because we include the 4 o'clock slates, and just be like, what are the odds I'm going to regret not using this player?
Yeah.
I feel like with Webb, those odds come like Friday could be like those odds are really high that I'm just like, what? Why did I not think harder about Webb and prioritize him? We could have talked about Webb Simpson in course history, but we didn't. So I do want to talk about him here because in theory, like we know that Webb at his peak is like world-class golfer, one of the best, especially whenever you put him at a course where he doesn't have to pound driver and just try to keep up with the field. He's not quite been himself for much of 2021, which is why I wanted to talk about him from a current form standpoint. But he did finish tied for 30th at the Fortinet Championship, did lose strokes from approach, which is not what you want to see. Again, we want to see, if we see missed cuts, we want to see at least positive tee to green. If we see good results, we want to see it come from iron play. But he also ended the season with a 19th at the Open Championship, 15th at the WGC FedEx St. Jude, 7th at the Wyndham, 47th at the Northern Trust, 12th at the BMW Championship. Data Golf has him 9th in true strokes gained over the past 20 rounds, including 13th in approach and 18th tee to green. It's very possible Webb's like healthy again. And I just, I have a lot of interest in Victor Hovland, Abraham Answer, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris to a degree. I'm like kind of looking at these new young players, but really feels like Webb could go out and just, post a top 3. And it's like, that made all the sense. So any interest for you in Webb?
Oh, for sure. Like it'd be very hard for me not to. Cause like, even when you, like, if you look at Fantasy National stuff and look at the past 50 rounds, that includes the time where things were not very pretty for Webb. But even if you include those times, he still measures up well relative to his salary. Webb ranks 14th in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds, 9th in bent grass putting, 22nd in approach, 36th in good drives gained. And like that lines up perfectly. We know long-term the Webb Simpson is like a world-class golfer. So you put him in this field, I think that all makes a lot of sense. So I feel like, to me, like if I am ranking out this top tier, I probably put Answer 1, and then Webb's at least in contention for number 2. I would say he's competing with Hovland, Burns, Scheffler. Like I think that's the list. It's those like 4 guys competing for second behind Answer. So Webb is very likely to wind up in my player pool because I think that he lines up well, and it's very possible he winds up being number 2 behind Answer in the entire field.
Yeah, it's one of those where I feel like he should be, but I keep being drawn to Victor Hovland and Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah,
it makes all the sense that they would actually kind of have a breakthrough win. We've seen this event kind of be that for certain golfers in the past. So I'm nervous that I'll be too low on Webb.
Yeah. And like I get the allure towards them as well because like we want birdies, and Scheffler is 5th in birdies or better gain. Hovland is 1st. Like you want birdies, probably want those guys.
Yeah.
So I think that it does make sense to be drawn towards them, but I still think that Webb is not shockingly a very good play. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I don't think I want to do a head-to-head between Webb and like Scheffler, because I think that Scheffler does make a lot of sense too, but like I at least considered it.
I think I would put I would go Answer, Hovland. Even with Answer, it feels like we love Answer, but am I going to regret like should have just played Webb over Answer? But I think it's going to be.
I don't think you'll regret that one. I think Answer's pretty sick.
True. Answer, Hovland, Webb, Scheffler for me.
I don't disagree with that order
from a DFS standpoint.
I think that's correct. I think I'd probably wind up there. The more I think Hovland should be 2. So Webb is 3, but that's still very high, and still no Brooks.
No, not for me.
Okay, I just want to check. Let's talk about Siwoo Kim. He's at his best on bentgrass, and he can make birdies. 2 things we want pretty badly this week. And Kim has put together some good finishes recently. If we look at him since he returned from the Olympics, Kim has been to 6 events. He has finished 11th or better in half those. Those were all backed up by good tee to green performances. He gained 8.3 at the Wyndham, 7.1 at the Fortinet, 6.7 last week. And a lot of that came around the green, which, as you said, does matter this week. But he's also gained at least 5 on approach 2 of the past 5 events. Kim, $10,300. He's made all 4 cuts at this event, and he was 8th here last year. So are you checking out Siwoo Kim in that range with Kevin Na in the mid 10,000s?
He's someone that's like in the mix for me. The question now is like, I'm talking myself into more Webb. I really have like this feeling, like my win simulation model feels like Scotty Scheffler is a bit overvalued, and pretty sure his odds have even shortened since I last looked at it. I just have a feeling that it's a very good week for Scotty Scheffler. So I don't want that to like change things. But if I'm seriously going to build around 4 golfers in the 11,000 range, realistically, I gotta say like, I'm not going to be able to get to Siwoo Kim.
Right.
My initial thought was because I like Paul Casey so much that I'd probably go Answer, Casey as kind of my building blocks, and that would put me back up into like the Siwoo Kim range. But for me, I like Kevin Na more. I like Cam Tringali more, and I like Joaquin Neiman more.
Okay.
Would you like a head-to-head on any of those
versus Siwoo? Again? You said Na, right?
Kevin Na, Cam Tringali, Joaquin Neiman.
Not Tringali. Can't bet against my boy.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
I might do Neiman. Maybe? Yeah, let's do Neiman. Let's do Kim versus Neiman. And I like Neiman too. Like, I don't think he's out of consideration. But I think that I think that I feel good enough about him where I will go with him over Neiman.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like, it doesn't quite feel like it. And the win odd, I think maybe because the win odds too are so, they're a little bit flat, but they're also long for like we don't have anyone at 12-1 or even like 15-1. But that doesn't really speak to the depth of the field. It speaks to the lack of straight up like superstars in the field.
Yeah.
So the amount of depth we have really makes a balanced build appealing, but I feel like I'm going to end up chasing the higher end guys because there are some value plays who make some sense to me. So
Yeah.
that's always the biggest like conversation because I try to pick one of those two types of builds and stick within it.
Yeah.
Rather than jump around with all my lineups.
Yeah.
I'm still leaning more toward being a little bit more balanced with because I can't forget about Paul Casey.
Right. I think that's the key thing for me. That's keeping me towards balance is Casey, which is scary to build your entire roster construction around one guy.
Yeah.
That's because Casey has paths to failure, very obvious paths to failure. But like, I agree that he's just undersalaried and a guy I want to prioritize overall. So let's move now to a couple guys who people might not be super aware of. Starting off with Rasmus Hoygard, he is $8,700. Win odds for him less than 100-1. So what are you seeing with him in terms of the current form and what people know about him entering this event?
Yeah, I mean, if you are a like golf diehard, Rasmus Hoygard's not gonna be a name that like surprises you that I'm talking about here. If you're just kind of listening because you know listen to us weekly or you're playing NFL and you're checking this out, Rasmus Hoygard might be a name that you hear a bit and you probably haven't heard very much before, but the Hoygard boys have been kind of the rage on the European tour lately. Rasmus won the Omega European Masters after a third, and then he went on to finish 18th when his twin brother Nikolai won. Then he missed the cut by shooting an 81-71. So again, you want to look at missed cuts. 81-71. I don't know what happened. I didn't dig into that, but it's not like he was 75-75 or whatever. Hoygard's just 20 years old, but there's a lot of potential in the profile, evidenced by that win. The European Tour is, I think, a little bit overrated in terms of what a win actually means. So we're just kind of getting to that point in the season where you'll see someone on the European Tour pick up a win or a bunch of top tens, comes over here and plays. Like, well, he's got 4 straight top tens. It's like, well, what does that mean? Thankfully, I have some data that kind of equalizes things. So here, I'm going to kind of transfer his 3 recent results. I'll skip over the missed cut and kind of give it context for the PGA Tour equivalent. When he finished 3rd at the Kazoo Classic, that would basically be like a T24 at the Wyndham. So still pretty good. His win that week would have been about a T12 at the BMW Championship. So still pretty good. And then his 18th would have been equal to about a T28 at the Fortinet Championship. So we'd still get a golfer at 8,700 with like 3 straight top 30s, aside from that missed cut again, which I don't know what happened there. He might get some buzz, but probably not enough. I kind of think it could be worth the risk with all the unknowns.
Sure.
So he's someone who I want to just kind of keep an eye out for, see if people are talking about him a ton. And if they're not, I might just try to buy early.
Okay, let's talk about Sahith Thigala, and we can kind of compare those two because both these guys require level adjustments. Thigala is at the Corn Ferry Tour, and you've mentioned that the Corn Ferry Tour is pretty similar to the European Tour in terms of difficulty. Thigala, one of the guys coming up from there, pretty successful last year, looked good early in the swing season. Thigala played both the Fortinet Championship and the Sanderson Farms Championship. He gained 2.5 in approach at the Fortinet, but lost it all in the greens. Then at the Sanderson Farms, he gained 6.8 tee to green, +3 putting, and finish 8th. Thigala's adjusted strokes gain data the past 6 months puts him between Doug Gim and Cameron Davis. And we love Doug Gim on this podcast. In this house, we appreciate Doug Gim. It's not elite, but like, it's worthy of looking at for sure. He's $8,400. So are you buying into Thigala, or is it mostly Hoygard who stands out to you among these guys coming from different tours?
So if I had to pick one, it's going to be Thigala for sure. Okay. I like what I've seen a bit more overall. He's been kind of lingering a little bit more. That actually finishing T8 at the Sanderson Farms is very tangible. It's going to translate. Playing on the Corn Ferry Tour as well, I would assume translates a little bit better to the PGA Tour than the European Tour. So if I had to pick one, it's going to be Thigala. But honestly, I don't. Again, I talked about Hoygard as someone I would consider playing, but they're not going to be core plays for me. I like to talk about these golfers at this time of year because it's really fun to look at the new things. I was just talking about that same phenomenon with Webb Simpson.
Yeah.
They're fine plays. They're not that these two specifically aren't standing out to me as being overrated, but they're not going to be building blocks.
I think that makes sense. And probably the way it should be. I think the one thing that's reassuring with Thigala is that his short game numbers are pretty good. And like a lot of times when I get drawn into these guys coming from different tours, it's because of their ball striking. Thigala has had good ball striking recently, but also the longer term stuff on his short game is solid too. So I think that's encouraging with him. I am open to both these guys personally, but I think that like Thigala, I'd agree, is the one I'd be more inclined to chase because I feel like the short game being good gives him a floor, and then the ball striking we saw last week gives him a path to a ceiling at least, which is encouraging and I think worth some looks for sure. Let's take a look at what the bookmakers are saying for this week. Things, as you mentioned, super flat at the top here. Brooks Koepka and Victor Hovland, co-favorites at 20-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Nobody shorter than that. Scotty Scheffler and Abraham Ancer, both 23-1. You mentioned that Abe opened at 30-1. He has shortened. He should have. Sam Burns, 25-1, coming off his win. Will Zalatoris is 28-1. We had Kevin Na, Louis Westhazen, Webb Simpson, and Hideki Matsuyama all 30-1. Sung J In and Harris English round at the top group at 32-1. So the win odds here are much flatter than we've seen in a long time. But as you said, it's still a deep field. So how does it impact your approach this week for DFS, given the way the win odds break down?
Yeah, I think it's going to be best if we then, again, I'm very enamored with the names at the top the more I look at it, but just with the depth here, I'm going to be a little bit more balanced. I think that's the right call. Nobody in this field has, obviously based on the, the sports book odds, but nobody's got like crazy high win odds at all. Nobody in my model is above 5%. All things considered, that's very, very low. So I think it's going to be best if I just optimize some things toward the mid range. There are a lot of golfers that I would justify playing who we can't get into. We can't talk about all 144 golfers, but just some names that I will be like, that I have a lot of interest in that I'm not going to talk about as my favorite plays. Like Brian Harmon at 9,700 makes a ton of sense for this week. I will go back to Jason Kocrak. I mentioned Cam Tringali. Kevin Na, Joaquin Neiman, even someone like an Ian Poulter, like this week, is justifiable at 9,200. So I'm getting really into like these value plays, but I think the right call is to rein that back in and focus on like the 9,000 and 10,000 range for the week.
Yeah, I think that my favorite approach is answer plus balance, and I think that is one that works both for cash games and for tournaments because you're not losing a lot of upside by peppering the 10,000 range. That's always my concern, is that I'm sapping away upside by focusing on guys who are like in the second tier relative to the field. Whereas like this week, like the separation between, hypothetically, like the separation between, let's say, Harris English, who we love, Harris English and, Kocrak, Tringale, et cetera, I don't think it's that huge. So I'm okay dipping down and taking those guys and taking advantage of some salary savings, taking advantage of guys who do have a path to a good event. So I think that that's very much on my mind this week.
Yeah, I mean, Hideki at 11, Harris English at 10.9. I have them at 2.2% likely to win. Kocrak, Tringali in the low 10,000s, 2.1%. So virtually the same. Like Brian Harmon's up there too. I just threw his name out there, but I'm with you, in a more top heavy field, just with the way that FanDuel salaries work, you don't get golfers at, 13,000 and then everyone else is in the 10,000 range. It's usually this kind of same distribution, but we see 7, 8, 9% win odds sometimes at the top. We don't have that, so I think the right call. It's not as fun from a taking some stands on some value plays. It's not as fun, but I think the right approach is focusing on some of these $9,000, $10,000 golfers.
I do think there's room to still take a shot at like one of them. Like if you want to go with like Hank and Hank Lee Biota and then just pepper the daylights out of the 9,000 and 10,000 range, like that works pretty well too. So I'm on board with that.
So if you plug in Abraham Answer at 11.8, your remaining salary for your 5 golfers is $96.40. If you pair him with Hank, it goes up to $10.3. I'm not saying you play Hank in every lineup. I'm not saying that. We talked about Martin Laird. We'll talk about some other low salaried plays, but you can get back up into like the 10K range for multiple golfers. And that has a lot of appeal for me this week.
Yeah, I think I agree very much so. And I think that it looks pretty good. Just looking at it right now, looks pretty good. So I'm unopposed to playing things that way. We mentioned that Abraham Answer's odds have shifted significantly. He opened at 30. He's now 23-1. That was a price correction, basically. He got that down because he should have. What other golfers' salaries have moved or odds have moved since things opened yesterday?
So there's been a few. Scotty Scheffler is now 23-1. He was 25-1. Again, Abraham Answer 30-23. Will Zalatoris 30-28. Jason Kocrak, our guy, lengthened 37-44.
Disrespect.
The aforementioned.
Do they not know about the pocket kings, pocket aces,
pocket queens,
pocket queens?
I think he's got like pocket sevens as well.
Jacks. Why not? Just roll it all out there.
Yeah. And then Brian Harmon from 70-65. I just mentioned his name. Nobody else has moved with odds, better than 100-1. So I'm not going to rattle off those guys. But
are we overlooking the Kocrak in Vegas narrative? Like, I feel like that should be a thing that gets discussed. I don't know if it's a good narrative. It might be a massive downgrade, but I think we should at least consider that maybe he's a guaranteed winner.
I mean, so when you put Jason Kocrak out in Vegas and he's literally telling us that he's
cheating,
he's cheating. I think you got to bump that up a bit.
Jason Kocrak has been banned from several casinos. I have no idea if that's true. Just a disclaimer. I'm not trying to slander our boy, but just saying, consider the Kocrak in Vegas narrative. For better or for worse.
And he won the CJ Cup, if memory serves.
Did he? Okay. So the Kocrak in Vegas narrative, very live. I think we got to consider. Also, isn't Kevin Gnaw? Doesn't he live in Vegas?
I don't know. I'm really bad with knowing where golfers live.
Yeah, he has a home in Vegas. So just saying, we got to consider all this. So pepper the mid-range because we have the Kocrak and the Kevin Gnaw narratives.
Yeah. That's it. Well, we could save so much time if we just knew where these guys are.
I tried to wrap up the podcast 20 minutes ago and you wouldn't let me. But anyway, which lower salary golfers have odds stand out to you?
Okay, so below 9,500, there's Danny Willett, who won last week at the Alfred Dunhill Links. Russell Henley, 70-1. Sorry, Danny Willett, 65. I don't know if I said that. Below 9,000, Carlos Ortiz is 95-1 at 8,900. Lucas Glover, also 95. Thigala, 95. Henrik Norlander, 95. Hoygard's 95-1. These guys are all below 9,000. That's really about it, though.
Yeah, I think that it's a week where you'd want to be cautious with those numbers too, because I think there's a lot of mobility in that lower range. So you could get, buzz for potentially unjustified reasons. Like, what's your read on Willett? I know obviously there's a reason he's getting buzz, but I feel like I'm not super drawn towards him despite the current form there.
Yeah, the current form's really bad. And that's hard to it's hard to kind of get over.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
I mean, I was trying to I don't know. I feel like it's the win.
I agree. Weather for this week, you'd mentioned there was an event previously where wind brought the scores way closer to par. That's probably not going to be the case this week. On Thursday, wind speeds will start below 5 miles per hour, pick up to around 11 by 2 p.m. So an edge for the earlier golfers. Things are a bit more steady throughout the day on Friday. There is still an edge for the early crowd, but it's a bit more muted. So those teeing off early Thursday might have a slight edge, but it's not enough for me to go with like waves. But like, if you want to bump up guys who are teeing off earlier Thursday, I think that's fine. I just would not go far with that at all. Things more calm the rest of the week. So only slight tweaks. I wouldn't change things too much based on that. I wouldn't go out of your way to target guys based on that, but at least worth noting that there is a little bit of wind for this week. Let's move into our player picks for the Shriners Children's Open based on the salaries over at FanDuel.com. Brandon, who is standing out to you in the top range this week?
Who's standing out to me? Both of the guys you picked.
Oh, sorry. See, don't you wish that I weren't on the podcast? You could talk whatever you wanted.
Yeah, we should do that for the PGA. We do that for NFL now.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that tweak.
No, I mean, I'm fine with going with Victor Hovland, 11-9. I think he's my clear secondary option behind, it's not a spoiler at this point, Abraham Answer. I think he just has like the right skills to dominate, go deep here at TPC Summerlin. So very fine with the salary of 11-9. Leads the field in birdie or better rate and in adjusted tee to green play over the past year. The birdie or better rate comes over the past 50 rounds, and that's from Fantasy National. Also leads in birdie chances, which also comes from Fantasy National. It's their opportunities gain metric. So you're looking at a golfer who gets into birdie chances or birdie range, makes birdies, is the best tee to green. He's accurate. He's close to neutral on bent grass. He's above average for this field with the around the green play, which again is kind of important here. I don't have anything bad to say about Victor Hovland.
I have nothing bad to say. I just prefer Answer by a bit, and that's not a shot at Hovland. I think Hovland's a very good alternative for sure. So if Answer were to wind up being outlandishly popular, which I don't think will happen, I think there are enough good dudes to mute that, put a lid on it. I would say Hovland a very fine pivot, but overall I like Answer a lot. He is a statistical beast for this course. Leads the field in good drives gained the past 50 rounds. He is 9th in approach, 13th in birdies or better gained, 18th in bent grass putting. And he's turned that into good results here specifically with a couple top buys, but more importantly, the form is very good. He has 7 top 10s in his past 11 events. 4 of those were top 5 finishes, including, of course, a win at the WGC St. Jude, where I was not here. Couldn't get to talk about Answer there, which is kind of sad, but either way, kudos to him there. He is 3rd in the field in adjusted strokes gained the past 6 months and should get a boost due to the course layout. So I think that Answer, first guy put in for a cash game lineup, feeling really good about him. And I am okay with Answer. Any final thoughts for you on Answer?
No, he's a number 1 play.
All righty. Who else do you like in this upper range?
Kevin Na, 10,400. I know we talked about him already, but I'm warming up to him more and more. Already mentioned that he's won here twice. Jim, with his detective work, found out about the home game for him. According to Data Golf,
home. I'm pretty sure it's a home. I don't know where he's from originally, but
according to Data Golf, Na has gained an average of 2.06 strokes per round over the past 3 months with their field strength adjustments. That is easily the best in the field. Only Louis Oosthuizen at 1.86 is within a third of a shot per round for Kevin Na over the past, again, 3 months. So good recent form, good results here, up and down results here. Just going to go with Kevin Na.
Just to update, he was born in Seoul, South Korea, grew up in Southern California, but now owns a home in Las Vegas. So just homeowner narrative, I think is the correct way to phrase that for Kevin Na. So we'll go with that. The homeowner narrative for Na. I like Na. I think Na is a cash game consideration. You wind up in this range. Very okay with that. And not against him for tournaments either. My second highest salary guy is Paul Casey at 10-7. Outside of the putting, Casey looks perfect for this week. He's 3rd in good drives gained, 1st in approach, 10th in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. He ranks 5th in true strokes gained the past 6 months per Data Golf. That's all great. The putting is always a concern, but bent grass is his least bad surface, so that's good. I am in on Casey here, even knowing that things could go awry in the greens. What are your thoughts on Paul Casey, someone who you do like?
Yeah, like him a lot. Just, you know, makes sense from a birdie standpoint, an iron standpoint, a wedges standpoint. And then you point out that he's at least kind of close to neutral on bent grass. I'll take that.
Okay, let's go down to the mid-range. Who is standing out to you there?
Charlie Hoffman again. He's just really underrated. His salary is 9,700. Another name in this tier who I will be building around. And we want to play Charlie Hoffman primarily at easy events, easy courses. Neutral with the bent grass putting, a minus 0.02 strokes per round, so basically just zero, which is fine. 99th percentile, though, over the past 50 rounds in opportunities gained and in birdie or better rate gained. And I don't know if this qualifies as S tier, so I'll call him A tier here with the ball striking, where he's 91st percentile over the past year in my database with the ball striking.
What's the tiering again? Why is S better than A?
I believe it comes from Japan. Some people also, I think, say that it stands for super, but
Okay.
I think it's.
So what is A? Awesome?
No, I think it's like an ABC tier, but I think S just goes above A.
Okay, so Charlie Hoffman A tier. Okay, I think he makes sense.
I think 91st percent. If he was like 99th percentile, that 100%, like that's S tier.
Okay, so Abraham Answer S, Charlie Hoffman A.
I mean, I guess. Okay. Sure.
I'll figure this out eventually. Let's go to Jason Kocrak. I think because I am going to go to Casey and strive for more balance, I'm okay talking up Kocrak in the mid-range at 10-1. Kocrak putting much better recently. He has lost in the greens in just 3 of the past 10 events he's been to over the past 6 months. His adjusted strokes gain putting in that time is plus 0.52, which is actually pretty solid for this field. It's like decently good. The ball striking has been a bit spotty, but he's still 6th in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. Kocrak, 43rd in good drives gained, 30th in approach. That's good enough for me to take the dive on him at 10-1. What are your thoughts on our boy Jason Kocrak this week?
Yeah, and I can confirm that he did win the CJ Cup.
Okay.
I remember that one now a bit better. I always applaud people for being able to like remember what happened last year. I forget already what happened like 2 weeks ago, but he beat Xander, so that's I think why it stuck with me a little bit extra. But very good profile for Kocrak as usual. I know you said he's 10-1, but it's our podcast, so he can be a mid-range play if we want. And he's going to be part of the core for me. And like I talked about the 11,000 range having a lot of names, but the 10,000 range, the upper nines, tons of names here. So Kocrak, absolutely.
Yep, I think that Kocrak, really solid guy. And again, like Gnaw, cash consideration as well. Don't laugh.
Solid guy, better golfer.
Better poker player. Let's move now to your second mid-range guy. Who else do you like here?
Mark Leishman, 9,600. I'm coming around on Leishman. I think very late. I think people love Mark Leishman, which I get from like a.
Do you base your perception based on whether I talk about them or not? Because I talked about Leishman a couple times over the summer.
No.
Okay.
From what I hear and what I read and stuff, like I think people like love Mark Leishman.
I'm glad you're not basing things off of me because that'd be detrimental. But I hear the whole world talking about Doug Ghim, and I've decided that Doug Ghim is the best golfer on the planet based on perception.
You won't believe how many people were talking to me about Luke List. I'm going to the grocery store and people were talking to me about Luke List. But
I was in a coffee shop and I overheard a small table next to me talking about Luke List's putting numbers.
And I heard this guy say Jared Goff is the best thing to happen to the NFL.
I don't say that. I Slack it now. I keep the bad takes on Slack. They're not audible because I don't need them to be replayed on Twitter. Videos are too easy to make nowadays. So those stay on Slack, the Jared Goff ones.
All right. So Leishman, like I'm coming around as a little bit late. I still think he's kind of tough to figure out, but for the upside, I'm willing to go there for 9,600. He was T4 at the Fortinet Championship, and that came from irons and putting, which is a perfect combination. It's not that we look at good results that come with putting and say that's bad. If it comes with other things, that's very good. We want golfers to be good putters. We just want the irons and ball striking in general to be there. Slightly positive bent grass putter for him. Rates out in the 75th percentile in adjusted strokes gained approach over the past year. So the long term, again, this waits for recency in my model. So I'm starting to come around on Leishman. I think the salary is very justified.
Yeah, I think he's decent in that range. I want to talk about that range in general, though. We got Hoffman there. Your boy Mito Pereira is $9,800. Matthew Wolf has had good results here. 17th this past weekend. Like there are some guys in this range. Are Hoffman and Leishman your two favorites here? Anyone else standing out to you? What are your thoughts overall in this upper 9,000 range? We've kind of glossed over a bit.
Specifically, if I don't even look at anyone with a 10 in front of their name, I am cool with. So Van Rooyen's been kind of trending up, but I'm afraid to get there. I would say Harmon, Hoffman, Leishman. That's probably those three primarily for me.
Okay. No love for your boy Mito. You've jumped off the Mito
Oh,
bandwagon.
it's not that. It's just I
Relative to
prefer
those
the
guys.
other.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, and I don't want to sit here and say here are the 27
16
plays.
guys I want to play.
Yeah. So those would be my top three.
I think for me, I'm probably going Hoffman above all. I think so.
Yeah. I think he'd be my number one in this tier. He just profiles as the best odds to score really well.
Yeah. Yep, I'd agree with that. My second mid-salary guy is Kevin Streelman, a bit below this range at $9,400. He's bad on bent grass, so that's a risk, but the ball striking has been great. He gained 2.2 in approach at the Sanderson Farms Championship, also picked up 3 off the tee there. He is 11th in good drives gained and 21st in approach the past 50 rounds. Streelman, 34th in birdies or better gained despite the bad putting, and I think that's pretty encouraging. He's $9,400. I think that is where he should be, like in the old Kocrak range, where he's good but has very serious and very obvious flaws. So I think the Streelman works down here. I would probably rather find the money to get up to like Hoffman at 97, but I do think that if I can't get there, I'm okay settling for Streelman at 94. Where does he grade out for you relative to this tier?
Pretty well. I think his bent grass putting at least is trending up over like the past 100 rounds. Okay. Still, it's not positive, but it's not horrible. 35th percentile, a minus 0.06 per round over the past 100 rounds. But, I think for me, I prefer Taylor Gooch. Would you be interested in a Taylor Gooch, Kevin Streelman bet?
I looked at Taylor Gooch as a consideration to talk up here. Gooch is 94. If I'm trying to recall, I think the reason I went with the Streel Boy was because of the birdie numbers. I think
that would make you lean Streelman, but Gooch is fine there too.
Yeah. I view this as being pretty even. I would be okay with it, but I'm not like adamant that I like Streelman more.
Yeah, I mean, we have the bobble hat, we got win picks, and then we have the bets we do on the show. The bets we do on the show don't actually lead to anything. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit more generous with my
let's just do it then. Let's do Streelman versus Gooch. The Streel Boy versus the Gooch. Let's move down to the lower salaried options. Who do you like at $9,000 or lower this week?
Now that I've entered that into the database, Patton Kazier right at 9,000. He could kind of have some troubles because he's ninth in the 9th percentile in fairways gained, but can also make a lot of birdies, 94th percentile in birdie or better rate gain over the past 50 rounds. So there's some risk, but honestly, he seems undersalaried for how good he's been over the past year. He is the 4th best golfer at or below 9,000 in my long-term adjusted form. The other guys above him are Taylor Moore, who I liked last week, Ryan Palmer, and Stuart Sink. And if you want to kind of have someone profile as like someone who's going to make a ton of birdies of those 4, it's going to be Kazier for me.
I think that if you play the angle of off the tee play doesn't matter as opposed to distance doesn't matter, that's where Kazier winds up being really attractive. And I think you can play that angle this week, given like if you look at Data Golf's numbers, where like distance and accuracy grade out to usual, both of them are less important than they usually are. So like you could play the angle of off the tee play matters less, in which case Kazier is awesome. So I think that's fine. I think that he does look pretty good for that reason and other reasons as well. I like Pat Perez at $8,700. Perez or 88. He struggled and he missed the cut at the Fortinet Championship. So things could go poorly, but I like a lot of what he does here at 88. Perez is well-rounded, ranks 34th in good drives gained, 42nd in approach, 42nd in birdies or better gained. He is 10th in bentgrass putting. Perez did finish third here back in 2019. So he does know the course. I think he's interesting in the lower salaried range. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Pat Perez this week?
Gets a boost on bent grass in a course where he doesn't have to be long. I just don't know myself if I'm going to get there with Lucas Glover, with Patton Kazier right above him. Sebastian Munoz at the same salary.
Do you want to do a Munoz versus
No.
Perez bet?
No, I felt bad as soon as I said it.
Okay, what about Perez versus... I might do Perez versus Glover, actually. I like Glover, but I might do Perez versus Glover. Let me find Lucas. Actually, no, I don't. Just kidding. I like both, but I think Glover is good enough where I want to avoid that one. But I like Perez. So
nothing wrong with Pat Perez, but I would even go Ryan Palmer above him.
You want to do that bet? Let me check quick. Yeah, I would take that bet if you want to make that one.
Jim knows something that I don't, but
no, I like you. I talk about Ryan Palmer plenty. I just don't think that this is the week for him.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay, Pat Perez versus Ryan Palmer are head-to-head number 2 for this week. Number 3, what was the other one?
Neiman over Siwoo.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to win all 3. Okay, who else do you like here in this low range? It's the guy we teased before. It's old Hank.
Yeah, and statistically, you will win all 3 of these because it's been
regression.
Bad. Yeah, I like Hank Lee Biota at 7,000. If you do go minimum salary, it opens up a lot this week. And there's a difference between rostering like 3 golfers below 8,500 and rostering 1 in a lineup. I'm going to go more of the route of 1 per lineup this week, which I would still consider somewhat balanced. But Lee Biota missed the cut at the Fortinet Championship despite ranking 13th in strokes gained approach. And that means he played 2 rounds, but was still 13th in strokes gained approach. He's really been relying on the putter lately, which you don't want to see. You want to see that it's good, but if it's only putting, that's bad. But the irons are also great. So he's got the irons and the putting. Over the past year, Lee Biota is in the 80th percentile in adjusted approach play in my database, 77th percentile in adjusted putting. He's got 80th percentile birdie numbers over the past 50 rounds. He's a positive bent grass putter, 0.23 strokes per round over his past 100 on bent grass. I'm going to play Hank. It could hurt me, but I'm going to do it.
Do you think he's going to play for cash because of how much he opens up or no?
I think so.
Like because I think so too, because like you look at the adjusted strokes gain numbers and like he's good relative to guys in like the 9,000 range there.
Yeah. He's just missing cuts. But if he makes a cut and is like, we'll give him even top 25, not say 13th in approach. Like that's going to be a great finish for minimum salary.
Right. I think that he's a cash game play. Very okay going there for tournaments too. So I think Hank is like the mindset in cash game should be to maximize the value you're getting relative to salary and the utilizing dudes who are under salaried. And Hank is probably the guy most under salary this week. So I think he makes sense there. My second low salary guy is Lucas Glover. I do have concerns around the form as we discussed before, but like at 87 in this field, that's not too bad. The ball striking has been good. Glover's been giving it back with a short game. Lost 5.5 strokes on the short game at the Sanderson Farms. Lost 1.4 at the BMW. And that stuff can stabilize. And if it does, it should help Glover snap out of this little string. So I think he's a steady value play at 87 for this week. Very okay with him. I'd put him above Palmer too, because just going to rank out dudes. So I'd like more, but I prefer Perez over Glover, but I do like both a decent amount for this week.
Yeah, I mean, we have options here. There's also Stuart Sink, Brandon Todd in the low 8,000s, Martin Laird again, low 8,000s, Lonto Griffin, 7,600. It's appealing, but a lot of these guys have bigger question marks.
Yeah.
For Glover himself, he kind of is that he's a tier above, so I'm not going to lump him in there. But if you make your cutoff 8,700 with Lucas Glover, you have a really balanced lineup. I think that makes a ton of sense this week.
Yep, I think it does as well. Let's finish up with our win picks based on the odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook. This is the first time we've done these so far. You can go first. I'll let you go.
Well, I presume you want Abraham Answer.
I don't know. I mean, like he's shortened a lot. I still think there's value there, but like there is an angle to I'm getting him at a worse number, and like I always feel kind of bad about that. So I don't think he's automatic. If you want him, you can take him.
So like he was a great value at 30-1. He's about even for me at 23. So that's not what I want to see. I'm going to start it off though with Paul Casey at 35-1.
Okay. So you can have Paul Casey at 35. I mean,
Scheffler also was a bit lower than I wanted, so he was on my radar, but
Webb is 30.
What's that?
Webb is 30 still.
I was going to go Webb.
I'm going to take Webb.
Okay.
I like it.
I know we can take it. We can take the same picks here, but
yeah,
it's the first show of the year. I don't have to use as much game theory.
Hey, who do you want for your second one?
I will go with. Let me see real quick here. No, it's going to take too long. I'll go with. Oh boy. So my model likes Louis a good deal. I don't think I'm going to get there.
Okay, I'll take him actually though. So you can talk about what you're going to talk about, but like I'm going to take Louis.
Okay. I will. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Abe Answer.
Okay. So you have Abraham Answer and Paul Casey, our two guys. I went with Webb and Louis. They're both 30-1. The reason I was into Louis, we didn't talk about a lot in the podcast, but I think that's because his salary is higher. Like the discount I'm getting on Louis relative to the top guys is bigger in betting than it is in daily fantasy. Yep. And I'm okay taking that discount. Louis leads this field in Data Golf's true strokes game the past 6 months by a decent amount. So I'm actually okay with Louis. So I will go with the vets in a swing season where we typically see guys break out who are younger. Let's go with the vets and Webb Simpson, Louis Westhuizen, and you have Abraham Answer and Paul Casey. I like both those two, but I feel pretty good about the win picks this week.
Yeah, I would have went with Scotty Scheffler if his odds were a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, that is all that we have here for this week. Brandon, any final thoughts before we send people off to build their lineups for the Shriners?
Fade the chalk this week.
Just because it's so volatile and so wide open?
No, like nobody's a must play. If it ends up that Abraham Answer is the guy that everyone's talking about, even though he's my favorite, I will play somebody else more often.
There are logical pivots in each tier. And I think that's, again, we talk about this a lot, but like I am far more willing to fade the chalk when I have logical pivots. Hovland, a very logical pivot. Webb, logical pivot. Louis even, I think, could work there too. So you've got ways to do it. We love Answer, but if it tracks that way, that's okay. And I'll be very sad, but that can work out for sure. That is all that we have here for today on the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, but plenty of more goodness here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. We, of course, have our Week 4 Daily Fantasy Podcast recap, breaking down how the rookie quarterbacks did in Week 4, breaking down the David Montgomery injury, talking about the implications of that, and a lot more. Find that by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, hit subscribe, leave a rating and review as well, because those do help us out tremendously. Also, if you're watching over on YouTube, hit the like button there and hit subscribe as well, because that does help us out a bunch. The Week 5 preview podcast coming up on Thursday at 10 a.m. on YouTube and up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after that. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
And I'm at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your PGA DFS lineups for the Shriners Children's Open. We'll talk to you once again next week for Jason Kokrak's Playland with CJ Cup. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.